Raven's Veil is a dark fantasy horror anthology podcast that may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Raven's Veil, a dark fantasy Southern Gothic horror anthology podcast set in the shadowy world of the Deep South. A convergent reality situated around what most of humanity has accepted as the truth. Obscured from human eyes, Raven's Veil is a mystical sanctuary intended to preserve the existence of its immortal inhabitants. The Macquarie, commonly referred to as witches, have been hunted since before written history. The witches of the Highlands fled persecution to a new land that would come to be known as Appalachia. In these parts, you should always be leery of the things that scare witches. The veil is thin tonight, family. Let's see what darkness lies beyond.
Well, hey there, family. Welcome back to Ravensvale. We're so glad you made it tonight. My. Y'all sure seem to enjoy the last episode. We've been right caught off guard by all the wonderful comments. It's mighty hard to stay humble when y'all go on like you do. We just wanted to tell y'all how much we appreciate each and every one of you and how much you mean to us. Well, enough of this him-hawing around. We need to get on with it. Now, we left off right as Miss Sybil was getting to Thistle's Keep. It looked like she was going to finally learn some proper magic. Alrighty now, settle down, family, and listen up. This episode might just get a little strange. Jude, Palmer, and Sibyl arrived at twilight engulfed in the serene woods that surrounded Thistle's Keep. They had been awfully cautious as they made their way to the keep's magical border. It had only been a couple of weeks since the wolf attack. Palmer could clearly see Sybil lying broken and bloody in the conjuring pool of the Ravensvale Temple every time he closed his eyes. She had been pale and lifeless, and he had been sure she was dead. But Ruby B had saved her. It had been the first time it actually occurred to him that Sybil might not make it through this. His gut wrenched just thinking about the possibility of losing her. He had sworn an oath to her mama on her deathbed that he would take care of her, and Palmer never broke his promises. The protective wards hummed with energy woven into the very fabric of the town. As they passed through their invisible embrace, the three Macquarie felt the magic of Thistle's Keep pull tight around them. A sense of safety settled over Sybil, a comforting weight on her shoulders. It was as if a warm breeze enveloped them, carrying whispers of ancient spells. The streets were made of worn cobblestone meandering around the town. Each cobble was bathed in twinkling starlight beneath the clear summer's night as they passed by the quaint homes adorned with magical symbols. Sunflowers bloomed along the pathway, petals radiating warmth and joy. The residents, fellow Macquaries, cloaks billowing like flames in the evening breeze, greeting her with kind eyes and knowing smiles. The air smelled particularly good, a tasty mix of sun-kissed herbs and freshly baked bread. The town square hosted small market stalls, where enchanted trinkets and talisman glittered in the light of the rising moon. Laughter echoed from a distant tavern, where stories of forgotten realms and lost spells were being shared over pints of spiced mead, beer, and spirits. In the heart of the town stood a temple, smaller than the one at Ravensvale, the Sunstone Cathedral. A marvel of crystal and light, its stained glass windows depicted celestial scenes, phoenixes rising, suns colliding, and constellations dancing. Sybil felt the pulse of magic, the heartbeat of the sun itself. They arrived in front of a large 2-story hall house, set off on a hillside nestled among ancient oaks, overlooking an acre of sun-kissed meadows full of wildflowers just to the left of the cathedral. The hall house's time-worn beams were weathered by the centuries, and its thick clay walls held the essence of enchantment within their sun-baked exterior. The three of them stepped through the heavy oak door, and the air seemed to change. It turned thick with history, memories, and the faint scent of beeswax polish. The building's central hall seemed to be a place where time sat for a rest, where the generations converged, and where whispers of the past echoed in the present.
Welcome to Sunfire Hall, Sibyl. You'll be staying here with me whilst I'm training you. Make yourself at home. I mean, it is your home now, too. I'll show you around, and then you can get settled in for a bit.
Once inside, Jude showed Sybil to her room on the second floor. The impressively large room exuded a timeless elegance, a blend of traditional charm and subtle luxury. The walls were adorned with a rich textured floral wallpaper. A large 4-poster bed stood in the corner of the room. The bed had a canopy draped in heavy fabric that puddled on the floor around the base of the mahogany frame. Sybil decided that the intricately carved sigils that were inscribed on the bed frame must have been for protection, or perhaps restful sleep. However, the centerpiece of the room was a fireplace where a small crackling fire helped knock the chill off the night air. There were a few books on the mantel that, from the titles, Sybil figured Jude wanted her to read. She noticed one title, The Sun's Magic by Baldric Ashford, and she wondered if he was her relative. The sitting area near the fireplace included a couple of plush armchairs and a small table, providing a cozy spot for reading or enjoying a cup of tea. The oversized windows were draped in heavy curtains and were designed to keep out the cold and heat, but let in natural light during the day when the weather was nice. She noticed her luggage sitting to one side of the room, so she went to work getting her things put away. Sybil figured someone must know a spell to glint luggage, 'cause she had been told to pack her stuff and leave it outside the kitchen of her daddy's house. When she was settled in, she went downstairs where Jude and Palmer were sipping some Clanroy scotch, Jude's drink of choice. Before joining the two, Sybil walked around the central hall that stretched out into a large open space, its high ceilings supported by massive timbers. The clear night sky allowed the moon's light to filter through the lead glass windows, casting elaborate patterns on the polished wooden floor. The walls, clad in ancient wainscoting, displayed a homey warmth. She could tell that the wood had mellowed over centuries, absorbing the stories whispered by countless Macquarie. At the heart of the hall stood a grand fireplace, its stone mantel bearing the scars of countless fires, and above it hung a large wrought iron chandelier, its candles long replaced by oil lamps. The walls were a gallery of faces, ancestors frozen in time. Sybil busied herself looking around at the portraits of what she assumed were Jude's family. It felt like their eyes followed her every step as she walked by, their expressions ranging from stern to benevolent. The long oak table dominating the center of the hall was strewn with old books, inkwells, and quills. After more than a few moments of looking around, Sybil meandered over to the parlor where the two men sat reminiscing about old times. As she entered the parlor, Jude indicated for her to sit down in a large, comfy, upholstered high-back chair. They spoke for a few minutes about Thistle's Keep, when a man's voice from the other side of the hall yelled out,
"Papa, it's ready."
Sybil, having been taken by surprise, quickly looked at Jude and then the direction where the voice came from and asked,
"Who's that?"
Jude looked at Sybil and cautiously said,
I can nae say how you'd nae heard of Petra. It's me son, Sibyl. Me adopted son.
Jude said quietly, as if explaining away why he didn't have a wife, but had a son.
He's your age. Lad's had a hard life up until he come to live with me. He's been in Thistle's Keep for about 11 years now. I expect you two will get on just fine. He's a shy one when he first meets you. But take it slow. He'll come round quickly enough.
Sybil followed Jude and Palmer to join Petra at a large wooden table to one side of the home's kitchen, where the family probably ate most of their meals. Petra was indeed shy, barely looking at their guests as he gently and quietly served them heaping plates of savory sausages, boiled taters, and thick slices of rustic hearty bread. Sybil suddenly noticed how hungry she was, catching a whiff of the delicious-smelling food that was right under her nose. After everyone had been plated, Petra sat down, and Sybil immediately sensed his magic. She had never felt more than a slight tingle when she was around other McCory, but Petra's magic was somehow different. Petra had a beautiful head of long, silvery blonde hair tied back in a tight ponytail. His sun-kissed complexion glowed with a smooth golden hue. He had striking eyes that she could tell held secrets, a heavy kind that whispered of distant memories and events he was unable to forget. His left eye, a tranquil azure, mirrored the cloudless skies after a summer storm. But the right eye was a golden yellow color that danced on the edge of mystery. Both eyes bore a distinct ring of silver, like moonlight caught in a crystal goblet. Petra was tall, his height accentuating his lean frame. His muscles were well-defined, showcasing the strength that lay just beneath his smooth skin. Each movement he made was graceful, yet deliberate. Despite his masculinity, there was a certain elegance about him, a balance between meekness and poise that made his presence complicated. Softly, Sybil introduced herself, saying,
"Well, hello. My name's Sybil. What's yours?"
A blush crept on his cheeks, a soft rosy hue that betrayed his nervousness. He tucked back a stray lock of hair behind his ear, a small gesture of self-comfort before his lips parted almost hesitantly.
I'm Petra.
He breathed, the name barely louder than a whisper, but clear in the quiet kitchen. Petra's eyes lifted for a moment, meeting Sybil's, and in that brief exchange, there was a silent plea, a hope for understanding, for acceptance. He was a quiet storm of longing, wishing for connection, for a friend to see past the shyness that cloaked him like a second skin. In that moment, things clicked for Sybil, and she remembered her time teaching at Hemlock Holler. She remembered that one special student, Eli, who had been so painfully shy, and how she had helped him find himself. She also knew she would need a friend while she was in Thistle's Keep, so she decided she would need to take charge of the situation. Sybil, with her strong, outgoing nature, kindly smiled.
"Hey, Petra. It's really nice to meet you. I'm going to be living here for a little while. Uncle Jude needs to teach me some sun magic."
It's good to meet you, too. Papa's told me all about you.
"All good things, I hope."
Sybil said, making sure Petra knew she was teasing him.
Yes, ma'am. Very good things.
Sybil gasped, acting a bit insulted, and lightheartedly said,
Ma'am? If I can't call Uncle Jude sir, You most certainly are forbidden to call me ma'am. I am not that much older than you.
Seeing the unintentional look of distress in Petra's face, Sybil quickly said,
I'm teasing you. Don't take anything I say serious. Just call me Sybil. Ma'am was my mama, or Aunt Ruby B. I don't know what it is about you, Petra, but I have a feeling we're going to be good friends.
I'm sorry, Sybil. I'm kind of awkward around strangers. You'll get used to me.
Petra stammered, thinking how nice it would be to have an actual friend he could talk to. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of oil lamps and the fireplace scattering shadows all about as it flickered. Sybil was in her room, sitting in a plush chair in front of the fire, paging through a book, her brow furrowed in concentration. Palmer softly knocked on the door before opening it. But it was the creaky hinges of the old door that drew Sybil's attention. Palmer's silhouette framed by the dim light of the hallway.
Sybil?
Palmer asked quietly. Sybil looked up, smiling, as she saw her father.
Daddy, I didn't hear you come in.
Palmer walked over beside her and sat down in the chair opposite her, his eyes reflecting a mix of pride and sadness in the firelight.
I've come to tell you that I'll be leaving for Ravensvale after breakfast tomorrow.
Sybil's eyes widened, a flicker of concern passing through them.
So soon? But why? I thought you were staying with me.
Sybil looked confused.
Because I need to get back to Ravensvale to make sure everything there is okay, and you need to start your training. Jude and Petra are ready to begin your training tomorrow. This is a pivotal moment for you, and I don't want to be hanging around distracting you or, God knows, being overly protective.
Sybil nodded with understanding and said,
I know, but I'll miss you. I was hoping you could stay here while I was training, but I guess it makes sense that you would need to stay in Ravensvale. I'm a big girl. I was strong enough to be my own woman in Hemlock Holler. No reason I can't be now. I need to look at this like an adventure, and I love adventures.
Sybil paused a moment while a memory overtook her vision.
Remember when I was little and Ruby and Lucy and I ran off to that cave to build a castle? Lord, if you hadn't found us, we might have ended up as food for some old bear.
Sybil said, almost apologetically, and Palmer responded warmly.
I can promise you, Sybil, there's no bears in that cave. Ruby B uses that for preparing ingredients that have a ripening smell. No bear would have tormented themselves with that horror. And I'll miss you too. But remember, this separation is only temporary. You're destined for great things, Sybil. This training, it's necessary. Sybil, it's time for you to embrace your magic. You don't have long to prepare.
Palmer sighed, looking down as if he wanted to say more, but he didn't dare.
I'll be okay, Daddy. I wish all of this was a bad dream. I've sensed the weight of the prophecy on my shoulders since the wolf attack. I sometimes wish I'd wake up and we'd be all back in Hemlock Holler, together. But I know what I have to do. That demon has to be dealt with, and you know I never run from a fight, and I've never lost one neither. So scary old Vrock Crocell, better watch out.
Sybil declared, trying to make her father smile.
You sure do have the McCory blood coursing through your veins, and your mama's temper. That demon doesn't stand a chance. You were born from magic, and magic is what you are. The Way, it's not just a title, it's your essence. You were born on Samhain, when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Your mama's water broke just before everyone was to arrive at the McCory temple for the ritual. So I called your Aunt Ruby B to come early to help. Under the silver glow of the hunter's moon, the air throned with an ancient power. The forest around Ravensvale fell perfectly silent, save for the whisper of leaves, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Ruby B's chants rose and fell, a melody older than time, summoning the elements to witness the arrival of new life. Your mama was so beautiful. She lay in the middle of the temple, resting against my chest. A soft glow emanated from her being, casting shadows that danced with life. And then you emerged, gently and peacefully, swaddled in the magic of starlight. You were born of the earth and cradled by the whispers of spirits long past. As the clock struck 3 that night, the holy hour, the witching hour, you took your first breath and then opened your eyes. Your eyes sparkled like a million constellations. And then, one by one, our beloved McCory glinted into the temple, and we all witnessed a true miracle of Samhain. The temple was filled with the spirits of those we had lost over the years and over the water. Nadira appeared to bless you, and when she held you, the world melted away. It was as if we were there at the beginning of the worlds. The gift of prophecy overtook her, and she told us you were the way.
Palmer said, abruptly stopping in contemplation.
Oh, Daddy, to be the way, the one to fight the demon, to protect all of our people from annihilation. I have to admit, it seems like it should be someone more knowledgeable. Someone that could be more useful.
Sybil said, pondering, but also with a little pleading.
The prophecy was clear, Sibyl. Nadira spoke of you because you have the strength, the courage, the heart, and the magic. Our magic is ancient and powerful, and you have the ability to master all of the ascensions.
Palmer spoke sternly, so there was no room for argument.
All of them? Even divine?
Yes, Sibyl, all of them. You will learn to command the sun, the moon, and the earth's magic, and yes, even to tread the paths that others find impossible. Divine magic.
Palmer said, yawning.
And if I falter? If the darkness overcomes me and I fail?
Then I will be there, as will all the McCory. You are not alone in this, Sibyl. We are a coven, a family, and together we'll ensure that the light of our magic never dims. The time is coming for you to be tried and tested, but for now, learn. Learn all that you can. Now, go to bed. A new journey awaits you in the morning.
Palmer stood up and leaned over, kissing Sybil gently on the forehead before turning to leave. Sybil watched him go, determination creeping into her features as she turned back to her books.
Well, hey there, family. I'm Jared Bolden-Greer, the voice of Jude Greer and Vrock Crocell here at the Ravensvale podcast. At Ravensvale, we love telling you our story. That's why I'm excited to tell you about the Appalachian Horror Fest 2024. Appalachian Horror Fest 2024 is an evening of music and storytelling themed around the macabre. The event will take place on Saturday, October 12th, 2024 at Central Cinema in Knoxville, Tennessee from 5:30 until 9:30 p.m. Our hauntingly talented musicians will serenade you with eerie tunes that echo throughout the misty Appalachian foothills. Gather round as our master storytellers weave their blood-curdling tales. Legends of restless spirits, vengeful ghosts, and ancient curses will dance in your imagination. Tickets are on sale now at AppalachianHorrorFest.com/tickets. Oh, storytellers. If your words can raise goosebumps and summon sleeping spirits, step into the spotlight. Submit your spine-chilling tale at AppalachianHorrorFest.com/storytellers. Appalachian Horror Festival, where nightmares come to life. We hope to see you there.
That night, Sybil slept fitfully. She dreamed of a sinister place deep in the woods of the Appalachian Mountains. It was dark and cold. She and Petra were hiding from the demon in a small cave tucked into the bedrock of a 100-foot wall of stone, its face a sheer vertical drop that plummeted into the forest's floor. The cliff's surface was a tapestry of jagged rocks and protruding spires, each one cloaked in a mantle of lush moss, and clinging vines drifted in the wind of the oncoming storm that brewed outside. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, and crashes of lightning were happening everywhere. Sibyl clutched her cloak tightly around her, freezing from the rain. Beside her, Petra, with a fearful glint in his eye, whispered incantations under his breath, his fingers dancing over runes etched into his staff made of yew wood. The cave was small, barely a crevice, but it at least offered a sliver of safety from the tempest outside and the demon they were hiding from. Vrock Crocell was a formidable power whose name alone could cause the earth to tremble. His presence was like a suffocating force, a darkness that seeks to extinguish the very light of hope. The storm outside mirrored the chaos the demon brought wherever he was. A crackle of lightning and thunder split the sky, a visual echo of the battle between light and dark. The cave's interior was damp. The air was thick with the scent of forgotten forests, moss-covered stones, and damp earth. Sibyl's eyes were burning with a determination that belied her fear, while Petra's chants grew more frantic as he was forming a protective barrier at the mouth of the cave. They could hear the rain beating a vicious rhythm, a torrential downpour that spoke of nature's fury. And with each flash of lightning, they caught glimpses of Vrock's wretched silhouette against the night sky. Sibyl reached into her satchel, her fingers brushing against vials of potions, each one a concoction of her own making. Petra's barrier flickered, the energy wavering under the strain of Vrock's relentless assault. The demon was throwing waves of destruction around haphazardly, and still the barrier weakened. Sibyl knew they couldn't run from this fight. She also knew they couldn't stay hidden for very long. The demon's power was far too great, but for now, it offered a fleeting moment of relief. In the heart of the cave, the crashes of the outside world seemed distorted, as if time itself were being torn apart, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. The air was laden with anticipation, and the stone walls of the cave, etched with the history of the earth, seemed to hold their breath. Unexpectedly, the stillness was broken by a creeping mist, a black smoke that slithered from the ground like a living thing. It gathered and swirled, wove from the darkness's own breath. It bore the resemblance of obsidian vapor, a churning, ethereal form that defied the laws of substance, a phantom of malignant design. Sibyl and Petra, their hearts pounding in their chest, watched as the specter rose, crowned with a visage of a noble stag. It exuded an aura of eerie grace. Its antlers, a tangle of thorns, clawed at the heavens like the gnarled limb of an ancient twisted blackthorn. Within its gaze, the eyes were empty pools of darkness, soulless and profound. It seemed to gaze into their souls, trying to suck out the essence of their being, threatening to devour the very spark of life itself. The body of this ancient creature was somewhat akin to a man, but it was wrapped in robes of absolute darkness. It moved with a litheness that contradicted its monstrous form. In Sibyl's wildest imagination, she couldn't have concocted a creature so terrible that even the demons and the darkest of things trembled in its very presence. Its voice, if you could call it that, was inhuman, more in her head than in her ears. It was filled with a sickening apathy, masked by the guise of a kindly old man. His kindness was a ruse, his gentleness a mask, and Sibyl could see the darkness all around him. Seraphax's voice, seeming to come from everywhere, said,
"Fear not, child of Makori. I, Seraphax, can deal with ya demon for ya. Vrock Crocell, be still. Your racket interferes with the business at hand. I know who you are, Sybil. I know what y'all doing in these woods, my woods. Indeed, y'all might be under the protection of yon Nadira, and I will not break the covenant we made ages ago. But that doesn't mean I can do you no favors. Would you like old Seraphax to fetch him away from ya?"
Seraphax, the Ancient One, towered before her. When he spoke, the very fabric of existence seemed to quiver. The offer hung in the air like a lifeline, woven with threads of darkness. Sibyl's heart raced, and she felt the decision in her soul, like a weight of each of her Makori brothers and sisters. Somehow, she knew that to accept would bind her to this creature for eternity.
No.
Sybil whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the cosmic tapestry. But then, a shift, a fracture in the material of order. Nadira, the Makori goddess, stepped from the void. Her presence radiated warmth, a soothing balm against the frostbitten chill of true darkness.
Brother, have we not an agreement? Time is a river that erodes even the mightiest mountains. Our pact, forged before the birth of stars, beckons. Can you pay the price of breaking the covenant?
She said, her voice like a distant whisper. Seraphax's mask of gentleness slipped ever so slightly, revealing a fissure of surprise and loathing.
"The covenant? Yes, indeed, sister. I shall abide, but I hunger so."
His pride, born from eons of existence, flared, and his form shifted back to a smoky darkness and vanished. Nadira's eyes softened as she turned to Sibyl.
Fear not, dear Sibyl. You are the fulcrum upon which the destiny of the Makori pivots. You are the way. I cannot be with you when you take up your battle, but I will help you in every way I can.
Sibyl, her eyes still blurry with sleep, descended the creaky wooden stairs just as the first rays of dawn tiptoed across the horizon. The air smelled of pine and dew, a comforting sensation that wrapped around her like an old quilt. Petra had been up since the owl's hoot, stirring a pot of something that smelled wonderful. The table was set with a rustic feast of plumped sausages sizzling in their own juices, eggs poached to perfection, and steaming bowls of porridge. Palmer stood by the hearth, his cloak draped over one arm. Sibyl noticed how tired he looked, and the crinkles at the corner of his eyes were only proof that the last few weeks had taken a toll on him. They ate in a melancholic silence. After breakfast, Sibyl, Jude, and Petra walked Palmer out to the clearing about a mile away from the entrance to Thistle's Keep. As they stepped outside, the morning mist clung to their boots, reluctant to release them. They walked in the muted fog of the morning, the rustling of grass beneath their feet, the only sound that cut through the lonely quiet. a path was nestled amidst ancient oaks and mossy rocks. It was there that the path ended in the clearing, as if leading to nowhere. At the clearing, Palmer turned to face them and said to Jude and Petra,
Take care of my girl for me. She's all I have in this world.
Jude promised as he pulled Palmer into a brotherly hug. Palmer turned to Sibyl and rushed to say,
I love you, baby girl. Please be careful, work hard, and don't cause any trouble to Jude.
He winked teasingly. Sibyl nodded, her throat tight. She hugged him close, memorizing everything she could. They watched as he stepped into the heart of the clearing, took a couple of steps, and glinted back to Ravensvale.
Safe journey, Daddy.
Sibyl whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. They lingered for a moment, his silhouette fading into the misty swirl, and then, like a shard of sunlight, he was gone. They turned and headed back to the keep, their footsteps slow, their hearts heavier. It was time to prepare the way. Well, all right, family, that's it for this episode. We're so glad you came back for a visit to see what was going on in Ravensvale. If you like what you've heard in this episode, make sure you tune in to our next episode when Miss Sybil learns just how powerful she really is. Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvale.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. You can find the Ravensvale podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't already, just search for Ravensvale Podcast. And again, make sure you hit the follow button to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Oh, and tell your friends about us, won't you? So until next time, family, see you soon.
The Ravensvale Podcast is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's story was written, directed, and narrated by Ed Bolden-Greer. The voice of Sybil Ashford was performed by Kristen Newby. The voice of Nadira was performed by Lena Perkins. The voice of Petra Hunley was performed by Presley King. The voices of Palmer Ashford and Seraphax were performed by Jordan Walker. The voices of Jude Greergor and Vrock Crocell were performed by Jared Bolden-Greer. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan at Nicky D Sound. Copyrighted 2024 Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.